Hello and welcome to another episode of Doug Formative. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to create a line drawing of an original sketch that I did over 10 years ago of Stitch from the Lilo and Stitch movie. Now you can follow along using any sketch that you already have laying around. I just took a picture of mine with my phone and saved it to my desktop so I could import it into Inkscape. And feel free to grab a sketch that you already have ready, or if you want to create a line drawing using a sketch that you just created but you don't have one yet, feel free to pause this video or save it for later and create a sketch so you can import it and follow along with this tutorial. Now the first thing that I want to do is import the sketch into Inkscape by grabbing the top of this window here, clicking and just dragging it away from the top, and it's gonna shrink it down a little bit. Now I have the image saved to my desktop. I'm just going to click and drag it into this window. Click OK. Now I can maximize the window. The first thing that I want to do is isolate just the sketch area. I don't want to have this dark background here to distract me. And in order to just have this portion here of the photo, we're going to grab our Bezier pen by clicking the letter B on our keyboard. Now I'm just going to do a crude outline of the sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to be able to get rid of the dark background so I only have the sketch that I'm working with. And anytime you do this, you want to make sure that when you get to this last point here that you're clicking on your starting point, and you can tell by the square it will highlight in red. So just click one more time and you can see that it created a whole object here. Now what we want to do, we can click on a color down here in the palette, any color. Now you can see that it always creates an outline around this. We want to get rid of that. There's two ways we can get rid of that. We can either go over here to our fill and stroke menu, click on the stroke paint tab, and then click on X. Or we can go down here to the palette, hold shift and click on the X over here. Either way, we're getting rid of the outline. And now with our selector tool, you can hit S on the keyboard, and if that doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't work if you have a selection, but you can grab your selection tool just by coming up here and clicking on that arrow right there. And I want to drop down the opacity of this about halfway, just to make sure that everything that we need in that sketch is underneath that object. Now we want to turn that object we just created into a path by going up to Path and then hitting Object to Path. And now we're going to hold shift, click on the original picture that we imported, go up here to Object, Clip, Set. Now we just have this sketch that we're going to be working with. Now some people, when they're working in Inkscape, they don't like to have this page in the background while they're working. It doesn't bother me, and actually I prefer it because it helps me keep things in perspective. If you get rid of that, sometimes you can create drawings that are way too big to export and you can't find the original page, and you end up with this really large file size that you're trying to deal with, and it can be a bit of a pain. So I like to keep it there just for that reason, but it's personal preference. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. I'm going to drag this into the middle of the page, and then I'm going to hold Control and Shift and then click on one of these arrows and just drag it in, and that keeps it in a centralized point when you're minimizing that. Now normally when you're in Inkscape, you don't want to work with layers. You don't really need to work with layers because everything that you create, it's a separate object, and you can just move it anywhere around the canvas that you want to. But I find that it's easier to keep the original sketch on a separate layer. So we're on layer 1, and in order to create a separate layer, we're going to go up here to Layer, Add Layer, and just name it whatever you want. I don't need to customize the name, so I'm just going to click Add. Now we're working on layer 2. But first, I want to decrease the opacity on the sketch so we can kind of see what we're doing on top of it better. So let's go back to our drop-down menu, select layer 1, select the object, and then bring the opacity down about halfway or a little more than halfway. You know, when you want to be able to see the outlines, but without them being too dark to where you can't see what you're working with. So that's fine right there. We're going to go back down to our drop down menu, select layer 2, and now we can go ahead and get started. Now before you start creating the lines, the outline of Stitch, I find that it's a lot easier to create the colors of your drawing first. So you create the colors and then you do the lines over the top of it, because the lines are going to be over the top of that color anyway. So it's a lot easier to work with if you create the color first. Now if you know you're just going to leave the object as it is, and you're not going to try to manipulate it later on and do different poses or whatever, then you can do the original color over the whole drawing. So that's what we can do in this tutorial. What we want to do is I downloaded an image of Stitch just to use as a color reference. So we're going to import that into layer 2 here by grabbing the top, dragging it down, and we're going to drag this drawing of Stitch into Inkscape. Just click OK, maximize the window again, and then we're just going to bring it off to the side so we have it there as a reference. Now I'm going to hold Control, and with the mouse wheel I'm going to scroll up and then just zoom in as much as I need to, just so I can create an accurate outline of Stitch. And we're going to do that with our Bezier pen. So hit the letter B on your keyboard to grab your Bezier pen, or come over here and click on that icon right there. And now we want to find a starting point. Now I think this is a good starting point right here. And we're just going to click on different points of the drawing. And I like to use just any area that is like a corner is a good, just a good way to create the lines, the points that we're going to be using. Anytime you see like a cusp of an arching or a curved area, you can use that as a reference. But any kind of corner is just a good area to click on when you're doing your outline. And you know, even when you're doing this, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because we're gonna go back around and we're gonna adjust the curves, we're gonna adjust the points, just to make sure that it's exactly where we need it to be. And you know, I'm gonna continue doing this. I'll speed up this part of the video so you don't have to watch this in regular motion, and we'll get started once I've finished up. Okay, now as you can see, I've created this crude outline of Stitch. And now we have two options. We can either color it in, or we can click and drag just the lines to make sure that the lines are where we want to be. I think we're just going to work with the lines at this point. Now what we want to do is grab our Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and we're going to go to each individual line that we created and make sure that they are lined up with the original sketch. So we can zoom in a little bit more just to make sure we're getting this as accurately as possible. And you know, once you drag the cursor over a line, once you see that hands tool, you can just click one time and then drag it and make sure that that curve matches the original drawing. And if you are at a point where, see this, it's kind of like a corner, but you want that to be a little bit more smooth, what we can do is hold Control and click on that node, and see how it gives it more of a curve? Because what it does is it takes the two handles and it makes them one solid line. So anything that we do, it affects the entire thing. Before, you could click and drag each of these handles individually to create more of an accurate curve. But, you know, this looks pretty good the way it is now. And we want to curve this out a little bit. And, you know, just because you're doing this now doesn't mean that you can't go back and adjust these later on. That is the one good thing about Inkscape. You know, nothing is final. So you don't have to worry about screwing up anything. You know, and just go around, click, and the whole purpose of this step right here is just to get a basic outline of Stitch that we're going to color in with his main body color. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up. I'll speed this part up too. Alright, now as you can see, we created the basic outline of Stitch. And like I said, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because if you find after you've created the lines that the colorizing is off by a little bit, you can always go back and adjust it. Nothing is final. But we want to go ahead and fill in Stitch with color, his basic color, and that's why I like having this little guy here as a reference. And what we can do is grab our dropper tool by hitting the letter D on the keyboard. So you can see we have our dropper tool now. Now we just want to click on the main area of Stitch's body here. Now, as you can see, we're getting that exact same bluish gray color of Stitch. Now we still want to see what's going on in the background, and then continue coloring him in with these other colors. You know, we have the darker blue for the bottom of his feet and paws. Then we have the lighter blue over his eyes and his torso area. So what we want to do is lower the opacity of this. So let's grab our selector tool by hitting the letter S, and in our fill and stroke menu over here, we're going to click that down about halfway so we can still see the lines and the other areas that we're going to be working with. Alright, so next we can do, let's go ahead and do his eye areas, and then his belly. Now you can see I kind of have a light outline of the lighter color of his eyes. Now what we can do is just go to our ellipse and circles tool, and we're just going to create an ellipse shape, just an oval. And we can go ahead and grab our dropper tool by hitting the letter D and making that the color that we need. And then we can take our selector tool by hitting S on the keyboard, and then you can see that the ellipse is kind of at a 45-degree angle here. So we can click on this image one more time and then grab on one of these corners, and if you hold Control, you can make sure that it's exactly at 45 degrees, but that may not be perfect. We can drag it over here, hold Control, and scroll up on the mouse to see how that lines up. And then we can make whatever adjustments we need to make by clicking on the image one more time. And then you can click any of these corners and bringing it in, and, you know, dragging it around until it fits that shape exactly the way you want it to. And then once this is done, we're going to be able to go back and make the fine-tuned adjustments by using the Paths to Nodes tool. But first, before we do that, I'm going to scroll out just a little bit, and I want to duplicate that ellipse shape and put it over his other eye. So to do that, with that selected, we're going to hold Control, hit the letter D on the keyboard, and click and drag this off. And now what we can do is a horizontal flip by just hitting H on the keyboard, and that gives us a closer shape to what this other eye has here. And then click it one more time and do like what we did with the other image. Actually, we're gonna have to wait and grab our nodes tool in order to get this exact shape that we need it to be. So let's go ahead and turn these into paths. Let's hold shift, click on the other one. We'll turn both of these into paths at the same time by going to path, object to path. Now we'll just click off to the side. Let's work with this one first. So just click on that and then go to our edit paths by nodes tool. Now we can scroll in here and let's fine tune this ellipse shape and get it exactly how we need it to be. You know, just follow that rough outline. Bring this other node all the way out here, and then use these handles here to bring it in exactly as much as you need it to be. Now, if you notice, these two handles, they're working together like it's one solid line. If you needed to get more detailed and customize the angle of this curve here, you can turn this node into a corner by going up here and clicking on this little icon right here where it says make selected nodes corner. So if you click on that, if you notice, each handle will move independently, and that just gives you a little bit more accuracy when it comes to creating the shape that you need. Now sometimes it doesn't work that well, and it creates an angle when you really want to curve. And you know, if you needed to change this back, you can hold Control and click on this node, or you can click on this button right here that says make selected nodes smooth, and that will make this like it was before, where the handle is just one continuous line. Now that looks pretty good there. Let's go ahead and go over to this other one. We can click on it to start making our adjustments. Let's click on that node, bring it in a little bit. Same thing with this here. And you know, this one's more of an oval shape, so we're probably not going to have to do a whole lot with this one. And you know, that looks pretty good right there. So let's you click on your mouse wheel, you can drag the canvas around wherever you need to focus on, but I'm going to hold Control, scroll down on the mouse wheel just so we can see where we're at this point. And now we can create a shape for Stitch's belly. And that doesn't have to be perfect. We just kind of want to trace, just, you know, get the basic outline of his torso area following the shapes that we've already drawn out. So let's zoom back in, grab our Bezier pen by hitting the letter B, and let's just get started. Now if we go back to the drawing, you see that it goes underneath his chin. So we're going to start around here, and then we're just going to create it like a curved shape, connect back to his face, and then just kind of trace the outline of the bottom of his face here to create that shape. So let's go ahead and zoom back in, start from about here, and we're just kind of want to trace this area here, kind of like what we did before, because it's going to be behind his foot here. And just bring that over here. And once again, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect, because we're going to go back and make all the adjustments we need. And then once again, once you're completing this path, make sure that that square highlights in red. And there is our shape right there. Let's go ahead and make it the same color as this by grabbing our dropper tool by hitting the letter D on the keyboard, clicking on that area. Let's bring down the opacity over here in our fill and stroke menu about halfway, and let's get rid of the outline by holding shift and clicking this X right there. Now we can hold Control, scroll up on the mouse wheel to zoom back in, and now we're going to go ahead and grab our edit paths by nodes tool and make any adjustments to these curves. So now what we want to do is let's color in the bottom of his feet. We're going to create ellipses like we did before by grabbing our ellipses and circles tool. Let's scroll in, just click over here and then just drag and create just the basic shape that we're going to be using. Hit S on the keyboard to get our selector tool, click that object, and then grab one of these rotation handles and just try to get that same angle of the original shape here. And let's scroll out. We can duplicate that and drag that over to this one. So Control D, click and drag that over here. And you know, in the original drawing, I think I made this a little bit smaller than it needed to be, so we can make this whatever size we want to. You notice we already have our rotation handles, so we can drag and adjust that rotation, make it wherever we want to be. And if we want to click one more time, then we can hold Control and Shift and then click one of these arrows and drag it in and just make it whatever size we want it to be. And that looks pretty good right there. Now we can make it the correct color by holding Shift and selecting the other one, so both of them are selected now. Let's grab our dropper tool by hitting the letter D and then clicking on this dark blue area to make it the correct color. Now the next color that we're going to do, let's go ahead and do his nose, and that'll be simple too. We're going to create another ellipse. Let's go ahead and zoom in, grab our ellipse tool, click over here and just drag it out to get that same basic shape. And let's grab our edit paths by nodes tool. Let's grab our selector tool, turn this into a path first by going to path, object to path. Then we'll grab our edit paths by nodes tool so we can really get this the shape that we want it to be. And it's not a perfect oval, the shape of his nose. And this part, like I said, when I say it doesn't need to be perfect, it's because we're going to create outlines, the actual the lines that are going to go over the top of the shapes, and we can really define the shape of each of these areas of Stitch with the line work. We really want these here as the just the underlay, for lack of a better term. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to bring this in just a hair. That's all right. All right, that's good. Let's go ahead and zoom out. And there's two more areas that we need to do. If you notice, his ears are folded down behind his head. So you're going to see this pink area inside his ear. So those are the last two shapes that we're going to need to create to just do the color. Alright, so now we are done with all the different colored areas. So now we can get started with our line work. Now there's a couple different ways that we can do this. Some people like to do a stylized version of the line drawings, and that is by creating lines. Like if you look at this guy here, I know he's kind of pixelated because it's a low-res image, but you can kind of see how the lines here, it almost like comes to a point, gets thicker towards the middle, and then comes to a point on the other side. I can show you guys how to do that if you're really interested in seeing how that works. And I think that works well for the inner lines of the drawing, not for the outline of the entire drawing, but when you're doing these little details like the fur on his chest, these little lines over his nose, his eyebrows, and things like that. I'll show you how to create those stylized lines at the end of this tutorial. But first, we're just going to do the basic, just the basic outlines first. Let's go ahead and just find a starting point, and we're just going to do like what we did before. Just click on certain points along the outline of Stitch. So we'll do the initial outline first, and then we'll go back and we will do the the inner lines. So I'll speed up this process. So first, we want to decide how thick we want the lines to be. So that's going to be called the stroke path. Now what we can do with that still selected is over here in our fill and stroke menu, we can go to our stroke style. I like to change this to pixels, and then let's figure out how thick we want that line to be. Let's try 10 and hit enter. Alright, I think that's way too thick. Let's split that in half. We'll do 5. And I think that's pretty good, but I might want to go a little bit less than that. Maybe 3. Alright, I think 3 is going to work for what we want. So with that selected, we're going to go ahead and choose our Edit Paths by Nodes tool. And we're going to do like what we did before. We're going to focus on each little line, and we're going to drag these out and make them the angle that we want them to be. I think I'd like to create the toenails and the fingernails first. So what we're gonna do should be pretty simple. We're gonna go ahead and grab our Bezier pen and turn on our snapping. And you want to make sure that you have snap to paths turned on. And now what we can do is just simply snap to these nodes here that already exist. We're going to go ahead and click on the black color in our palette, hold shift, click on the X to get rid of our outline, and then we want to go to our Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and we just want to trace that same shape that we already have. Alright, so I know this video is getting a little bit long, but I want to show you how to create those stylized lines that I was talking about. Now, as you can see, if I zoom in, I've already created a couple right here. So you can see at the very tip, it comes to a point, then it gets thicker towards the middle, and then tapers down to a point back at the other end. Now, in order to create that kind of a line, you want to create this shape right here. And how you do that is by grabbing your ellipse tool. You're just going to click and drag an elliptical shape. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle or anything, so that's fine right there. Grab your selection tool, hold Control and hit D to duplicate, then hit control or hold control, click, and then drag this shape down until you have that intersecting point right there. Now in order to get this shape here, you're going to hold shift, click on the other ellipse, go up here to path, and click intersection. And that's how you get that shape right there. Now since I've already created it and that's the shape that I'm working with, I'm going to use this here. You want to hold control and hit C to copy this to your clipboard, or you can right click and click copy from the menu that appears here. Now I don't need this other one here, so let me just delete that to get it out of the way. Now we want our Bezier pen, so hit B on the keyboard or select Bezier pen over here, and if you notice we have this drop down menu up top. Now typically it'll default to none, so it'll give you no shape or anything, it'll just create a straight line. If you click, drag, and then click and hit enter, as you can see it's literally just a straight line that it creates. But if you select, let's go back to our Bezier pen, hit B, select from clipboard, now when you create a line it gives you this shape here. So it comes to a point on either end and then it gets thicker towards the middle. That's what you want. And that's how I created these lines right here. So you're going to use your Bezier pen just like you normally would, but it just gives you more character with the line work on the inside of your drawing. Now I have the opacity turned all the way up on all these colors. I want to decrease the opacity so I can see the lines underneath them. So let's grab our selector tool, click and drag over the entire thing, and we want to select our fill and stroke menu, which it's already highlighted, and let's just bring our opacity back down about halfway and then click off of the entire image. That way we can see the lines that we need to make. So let's go ahead and grab our Bezier pen, and we're going to just click and create any of these lines that are inside here, and we're going to make separate lines for each little section. And you can make each individual line and then go back and edit them afterwards. So that's what I'm going to do before I start editing. So let me start doing that, speed up this part of the video, and then I'll show you how I'm editing each individual line. Speed that part up, and then you can see the finished product. Alright, now real quick before I finish the rest of the drawing, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you edit these guys after you've created the lines. So once you've created them, you can just go ahead and select your Edit Paths by Nodes tool, the same as you did before. And what you want to do is go ahead and click on the path that you're going to be working with, and then drag it out. And it's easier if you turn off snapping, because that can kind of get in the way. Now let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And what you want to do is kind of get the outside edge of this object to line up with the edge of the original outline that you created. So let's drag this in a little bit, and then grab this node and go ahead and adjust it so it just makes it look more like a smoother transition there. Grab the handle just like you did on the other outlines, and this handle right here will adjust the thickness, so you can bring that thickness all the way out or bring it in if you wanted a thinner line. You know, but it was fine the way that it was before, so I don't think you're gonna have to adjust any of these if you made the shape that you copied to the clipboard just like I did. And you know, that's pretty much it. You're gonna do the same thing with all of these other shapes. Alright, now we're pretty much done with our line work. Now just to check to see how well we did, what we need to do is bring the opacity up all the way. So we're going to take our selector tool, click and drag over the entire drawing, and then over here in the opacity we're going to click and drag that all the way up to 100%. Now what you can see is, for some reason, the light blue ended up on top of the eyes and the hair in the torso that we created. And I actually had to re-record this portion of the video because what I discovered is some areas of this drawing ended up on layer 1 instead of layer 2. Don't ask me how I discovered that, but it's you know, it was a fun process figuring that out. But in order to fix that, what I want to do is go back to layer 1. Let's go ahead and click on the original drawing that we imported into Inkscape and just drag it off to the side so it's out of the way. Now what I want to do is click and drag this whole thing. Hold Control and hit X to delete the whole thing, but you're cutting it so it's copied to your clipboard. We're going to go back up to layer 2, hold Control and hit V to paste it onto this layer, and then go ahead and center it back on the page wherever you want. Now what we can do is we can bring those other areas, the eyes and the chest hair area, back to the front of the drawing. And there's a couple different ways that we can do that. First way is we can highlight the light blue areas, and with those selected we can go up here and we can lower them all the way to the bottom and then click them up, raise selection one step until they're just like that, you know, and that's perfect. That remedied the problem. That's the easiest way to fix that. Now as you can see, with the opacity turned all the way up, there are some areas where the outline and the colored areas underneath don't match, and that's an easy thing to fix. All you have to do is grab your Edit Paths by Nodes tool and then click on each area that isn't correct, and we have an extra node there that doesn't need to be there. You can just click on that node and hit delete, and then you can grab these handles and drag them out wherever they need to be. And here's another thing I noticed is the pink area of the ear is in front of the black outline, and that should not be. So let's go back to our selector tool, click on the pink area, and we'll do exactly what we did before with the light blue areas. Let's bring it all the way down to the bottom and just click raise selection one step, and that's exactly what we needed to do. That was the easiest way to fix that selection. And once again, just go around, click on these different colored areas that aren't matching up with the outline, and just drag them wherever they need to be in order to eliminate these gaps that we have here. And it shouldn't take any time at all. That's just last minute touches, but the bulk of the drawing is done, and I think for the most part it came out pretty good. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and check out my other YouTube channel, DC Best Ever. And leave me in the comments some other suggestions, like what else do you want to learn how to do in Inkscape or graphic design in general. I'd love to be able to do another tutorial, and you know, you guys give me feedback will help me make my channel the best it can possibly be. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.